Who else can I put on this? Me? I can't find the gray. This is a dark.
She done, Mom.
Yeah.
Done.
Well, it's a usual Sunday, like hanging out with my family at home and doing some chores.
Where are your on the desk?
There's some.
I'm trying to repair two broken cables.
Yeah, that's it. And then
The first one was damaged by a bear,
Paper.
and the second was damaged by a wolf. Fortunately, I had enough of the two to make a new one. It would probably take 3 weeks to receive a new one from the store. That's the challenge of living in the Arctic. Since I was a kid, I have dreamt of the northern vast wilderness and to study its majestic wildlife. I became a wildlife biologist, and that's how I ended up here. Since 2012, I grew a passion for filming wildlife. I travel by snow machine on the land, on the frozen rivers, and on the sea ice, searching for animals to film. I'm Mathieu'nun, I'm from France, and I live in Nunavut in Canada. This time I want to film muskox. This is one of my favorite species to film and study in the Arctic. Well, they haven't showed up and it's getting dark, so I'm gonna prepare to spend the night here because it's another 3 hours driving home, so it's a little bit too late to go home tonight. We're trying again to find some animals, and it's mid-January. Pretty cold today, about -32, and fortunately the wind has died down, so at least it's not too bad for that. Nothing to see though, no animals. Even when I come home without filming any wildlife, just living away from the town lights provide me with some filming opportunities. So usually I set up my camera at night to record time lapses and see what the night has to offer. My 5-year-old son Thomas and my wife Amanda are always great to go back to. Since he was a baby, we always bathed Thomas in that sink.
That's the sail.
He started to get a little bit big for it, but he just loves it.
Yeah.
one of the somewhat downside of living outside of the community is that we have to commute every day to go to work. In the winter it's cold, but actually fairly easy because we do it by snow machine, and it takes us about 15 minutes to reach the town. Life in Koloktok is somewhat simple. There are only 2 general stores and 1 hardware store, and education is available up to grade 12. Koloktok is part of Nunavut, and Nunavut means our land in Inuktitut. It's a small community or village with about 1,500 inhabitants. It's located on the Arctic coast, the most northern part of Canada's mainland. Living in the Arctic, I think, is not for everyone. Even without talking about the cold and the weather, there is the isolation. Arctic communities are only connected to the south by airplanes. The longest you can drive with a car or truck is about 2 kilometers. Because people are so tied to activities on the land as well, most of the vehicles are off-road vehicles of some kind. The population in Koloktok is mainly Inuit, about 80-85% Inuit. Koloktok and the Arctic in general is a place of extremes. During the winter, of course, it's extremely cold, but it's also fairly dark, or the days are very short. We have about a month in the winter where we don't see the sun at all. There's a little bit of twilight during the day, and it seems like daylight for a few hours, but there's no sun. If you stay active and busy, it's actually not that bad.
And then to measure how big.
How big?
It's really
So I'm going for a day trip this time to look for muskox again, and I know where there's some, but the distances are so great that I'm not sure that I'll be able to find them this time again. Well, not exactly muskox, but I don't want to lose an opportunity to film ptarmigans. Filming in the Arctic, first of all, you need your fingers to operate the camera, and with thick gloves it can be challenging, and without gloves it can be a big problem. you can freeze your fingers in seconds. So you have to get used to both handling the camera with gloves and also have your body used to sustain the cold a little bit more than normal. It's amazing how they survive the minus 50 degrees at the core of the winter. Well, that was nice, but I'm gonna keep looking for muskox. The sea ice makes it easier to travel, being able to cover greater distances. Another opportunity. Red foxes are also resident of the Arctic. They are different from Arctic foxes and they don't turn white in the winter. Over the years, even when I can't always find what I'm looking for specifically to film, nature always gives me something, and I can use those other opportunities for stock footage, which is always great, and when I come back from the land I'm always happy. But no muskox this time. Living outside of the community, we can't count on the services from the hamlet. For example, we have to get our own water, both for drinking and any other use in the house. We have it right in front of the house and in the river, but it requires a little bit of work to get to it. The ice is about 2 meters thick, and you have to drill holes through it to get to the water. We usually have to do that every 3 months to fill up our water tank inside the house. And we're quite careful not to waste any because it's hard to get.
Too tall, too tall.
The river is not only our source of water, but it's also where we get some food. We usually set our nets under the ice around late October until the beginning of December. We check the nets every day to avoid the holes to get frozen too thick, and also to avoid the net getting frozen under the ice.
Nice chore.
Besides the hard work involved in living in an outpost away from the community, it's so peaceful and we're surrounded by nature, and it's always a pleasure being here, and it's never boring, and Thomas is the perfect example. Even in the stormy days, he always plays outside. The Arctic is particularly sensitive to climate change. With the overall temperature rising, we see the destabilization of the weather patterns and seasonal transitions. The weather and ice conditions have become so unpredictable that traveling on the land or the sea ice is more and more dangerous, even for the most experienced Inuit hunters. They still can tell you some pretty accurate information, but it's so chaotic that storms are coming from anywhere, anytime. The rapid changes affecting the environment have a tremendous impact on Inuit way of life. Even by the end of April, it's still around minus 20 degrees. But you know, the spring is coming. There is a festival in Koloktok at that time called the Nattik Frolic. Nattik in Inuit is the ring seal. The Nattik Frolics happens over a week. It's a celebration, so every evening there's activities, either games or dances. Inuit have their own songs and musical culture, but they have adopted the traditional music from the early settlers. There are many activities during the festival, some games and some competitions where people test their skills. It's also the opportunity for some people to showcase their best traditional outfits. Those outfits are really adapted to the life here, and for example the fur around the hood of the parkas is very important because it cuts the wind from hitting your face straight on. It may seem strange to some people that a spring festival is happening when everything is still frozen and covered with snow, but for people it's the new beginning. One of the activities during the Nattic Frolic is the seal hunt. Hunting seal is not a game, but a means to provide meat and waterproof skins to the community. This year Amanda wants to hunt one too, so she went out with her parents. So this is the second day, and Thomas and I are paying them a short visit because we don't want to disturb them too long. You need some peace and quiet to hunt. What they do is they look on the sea ice for natural breathing holes. So that's where the seal come to the surface to breathe. So the hunt is to wait at the holes with a harpoon until a seal comes to breathe at the hole.
What's that over there on the ice? Huh?
Seals have been and still are a very important resource for northerner. Seal has a very rich meat. When eaten raw in the winter, it fills your body with warmth. So far Amanda didn't get lucky, and not being successful is not like in the old days where it was a matter of life and death.
You can see the head, and you can see the...
These events are also an opportunity for the whole family to be outdoor, and Amanda being Inuk, family activities is extremely important for her. If she was successful, she would have distributed the meat of the seal to her relatives and to the whole family. So sharing and family ties are something very important.
Where?
Sometimes I go out on the land with Thomas, so he will get a chance to experience the outdoor more. When asked who he is, Thomas usually answer I'm a French Inuk, so French from me, and an Inuk is the singular of Inuit, so it's a person. It means a person, Inuinartum or Inutitut, and I think he understands that he has the two cultures in him. I'm not an Inuk, and I'm not from this culture, so Amanda's family is very important for Thomas in that sense, to teach him traditional and Inuit values. But I still try to help Thomas as much as I can, so he will know the traditional way of living in the Arctic as well. This is why it is great to build an igloo within.
It's flat at the top.
I'm not as skilled as experienced Inuit hunters, and I probably don't do it the right way, but at least I get to spend time with Thomas. So Inuit used to live a nomadic life mainly. They've been amazing at surviving in that environment that is one of the harshest environments on Earth. It is fascinating how resourceful they have been. Take, for example, the igloo that is the perfect shape and the perfect shelter with what you can find here. We won't be able to do this kind of activities soon because spring is coming and the snow won't be good for igloo and then we'll be gone until the fall. So I'm out filming muskox again, and I'm inland for a longer trip this time to increase my chances. And there they are. One method to film them is actually to be visible in plain sight and approach them, but you have to do it very slowly and carefully so they don't get uncomfortable with your presence and they get used to it and they don't see you as a threat. The first day I had to be very careful the way I was approaching them. There was no way I could film them being far away. It would have been kind of very boring shots, so I needed to be closer from them.
But I didn't want to get too close because they are big animals, and if they see you as a threat, they can hurt you. But mainly I wanted them to be comfortable to film their natural behavior.
So by the 5th day I was standing there, the muskox were right in front of me, and so there was no obvious sign of any stress due to my presence. So that's when the magic started to really happen.
When I film something like that, and I have a chance to spend time with such amazing creature, I feel so at peace and privileged to have a peek into their intimate natural life. It's always a beautiful moment. There's a say in the Arctic that there's 4 seasons: June, July, August, and winter. When there is no more snow, we have to adapt our mode of transportation. We cannot use the snow machines anymore, so we have to trade them for all-terrain vehicles and boats. But it takes a little bit longer to get to town that way.
The downside of the warmer temperature is that mosquitoes are coming out. They can be quite overwhelming and annoying, but you get used to them, and with a little bit of protection you get through that month.
June is really the time where all the flowers are blooming and the land becomes green, and it's really the start of the summer. In the summertime, the temperature can be pretty warm, like up to 25 degrees above zero, and so it can get pretty hot, but it's short-lived. Starting in late May and until a little bit later in July, we can actually see the sun 24 hours a day. It's pretty low on the horizon around midnight, but it's still above the horizon. It's much more pleasant to be up in the evening and during the night during the summer, because it is a little bit cooler, the mosquitoes are not as active, so it's very beautiful, and a lot of people stay up during that time and try to sleep more during the day. At this time of the year, with all the migratory species, the tundra is full of life. This time I don't really have a specific goal, so I'm just looking for opportunistic shots, and I'm still hoping to find some large mammals like caribou, muskox, bears, wolves. But this trip is more for any kind of wildlife footage. To film wildlife, especially in an open environment like this, it's always easier to be alone. It's not the safest in the Arctic to travel alone, but that's usually the only way to really get close to animals. It can be rough traveling by quad on the land, like there's no trails, there's no roads, nothing, so it's by anywhere, and it can be quite bouncy, but traveling at a slow pace, which is the best pace to have a chance to see something, is quite peaceful, and I always enjoy going for a trip by quad at a slow pace. During the summer, we often go as a family activity to Bloody Falls, or Kugluk, in Inuit. It's a set of rapids in an arrow of the Coppermine River, And it's always a great day trip to have a picnic and do some fishing and enjoy the outdoor there. When I arrived in Koloktok, I started to work for the government as a biologist, and one of the wildlife officer, Alan Niptanatsiak, kind of took me under his wing as a colleague, but also more as a friend and a little bit father figure, and started teaching me how to survive on the land, how to travel on the land, and so I got kind of a little bit adopted by the family, and I spend a lot of time with them. And slowly Amanda and I got closer, Amanda being his oldest daughter, and then we eventually got married to continue our life together. We have been together for 15 years now, and from a fairly small family in France, I now also have a big family in Koloktok. Thomas liked fishing, but just to be at the falls and play. He loves water, so playing in the water is always a pleasure for him. Sometime out of the blue, he's the one asking, can we go to Bloody Falls? So he always has a great time playing around. Some of the fish we keep them, we just gut them and keep them for later, but most of them we fillet them and dry them. For them to dry faster, we do parallel cuts on the flesh of each fillet.
Hey, wait, Tom. Dance with me.
So usually we have one fish for a picnic right on the spot. So it's only a few minutes to at the most an hour fresh. It's always a great pleasure.
Thebomb.com.
One thing that I try, and I'm trying to learn more about it, is to film underwater. And Bloody Falls is a nice playground for that. Usually I use a small waterproof action camera at the end of a stick just to scout different locations, whether there's fish or not and what type of fish, and if it's worth kind of getting the heavier camera out or not. The tough part is that the water is not very warm. It's actually pretty cold. I kind of usually get caught up into it, so I come out shivering, but there's a great opportunity to get some footage of Arctic species. So we are at Ullervik near Locker Point, which is about 2 hours by boat from Koloktok, and we have a little cabin here, so it's very comfortable and much easier in terms of logistic, and for that it's easier to bringing Thomas with me. This time we're just going for a ride by quad, and we saw that caribou, so I started filming the caribou, and Thomas was with me, and he always tried to be careful not to make too much noise, and sometimes he gets distracted and then he will kind of wander off a little bit, but a lot of time he can approach wildlife more easily than I can. To have Thomas with me, even if, I mean, filming is important, but it's also the opportunity to teach him other things, like, for example, to know when to stop filming. This caribou kind of had a little bit of a strange behavior, and I'm not sure it was completely healthy or completely at ease. It might be sick or just exhausted from something, but we're just gonna let it be and not bother him. After a fairly long day of quadding, we came back to the cabin, and there was those Arctic hare that were close by, and that ended up being our best opportunity of the day. I'm not trying to force anything on Thomas, and I think just from watching me doing my own things, like, he started to grow an interest in taking pictures. It's too early, of course, but I think he's on the good path to be a passionate person, and that's what I can only wish him, is to be happy and have passion. Life without passion is somewhat boring. As long as he keeps some passion, whatever it is, and he pursue it, I'll be happy for him.
Yeah, because your battery is nearly finished. Last time we came in that
yeah?
in that area, like we saw the hare as well, but there was something much more interesting. Of course, when people think about the Arctic, they think polar bear. It's very flat, overall unbroken sea ice in front of Koloktok. I don't think it's the best habitat for polar bears, so most of the time we don't have any around, and the only bears we have are grizzly bears. So this summer I did not too bad in terms of footage. Like I got quite a few species, and in some as the darkness is coming back and we're preparing for another long winter, as harsh and unforgiving this place can be, well, it is my home and I wouldn't live anywhere else.